Hey everybody! Friday is my favorite day of the week because it's Q&A day, so let's go to Stephen and ask some questions.
All right, first question comes from Rooney. Stephen mentioned in the Q&A that the Unreal client contains purchased packages and thus cannot be made open source. Does that mean that the authoring tools will consist of only Racket-based runes and server? And would it be possible to open source the non-purchased parts of the Unreal client?
Yes, so that second one. So that's actually what I'm working on right now, is to have a sort of minimal Unreal sort of plugin that lets you author Unreal stuff and then connect that with CodeSpells, spell server and everything, so you can get some, you can have a spell crafting experience that doesn't happen to use those plugins. And if you, as an author, happen to have purchased your own plugin that you can't distribute, you should theoretically still be able to produce CodeSpells-y things using your own build.
Okay, awesome. I have another one from Rooney. How exactly is Racket able to provide UI within the Unreal client, such as the rune editor? How are the two communicating?
Racket provides or runs a web server. Same as if you're doing any sort of full stack web development. It's not anything specific to CodeSpells. So it's serving up at an endpoint, localhost, I think it's localhost :8081/editor. And then inside of Unreal, there's an embedded web browser that is sort of packaged up as part of the Unreal technology. I didn't build it. It's one of Unreal's sort of experimental features. You can just enable it inside of whatever Unreal game you want, and it seems to work quite well. So,
cool. I have one from Magical Rubber Crab Ovaries. Love this name.
Yes, what does Magical Rubber Crab Ovaries say?
Will we be able to write spells directly in Racket rather than using the runes in the initial releases?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Even I need that feature. I needed that feature myself this week, and I built it out. And so even some of the last few videos on YouTube, you can see me. I stick in one rune, and then I click that rune, and it pops open editor where I type in Racket code because it's just way faster. So I like runes for giving it out to people who are just pure gamers, not coders. If you want to build a polished game-like experience and hide all the text-based coding behind it, you have runes at your disposal. But if you're a developer like me, you got to be able to type text-based code. So.
Yeah, that seems important. All right, I have one from Unsealy. So this actually wasn't a question, but it was something that was mentioned on a YouTube video. And it's something that I think maybe a lot of people have maybe considered. He felt like parentheses don't feel particularly magic-y. And he was wondering why you chose to use parentheses, like why a Lisp language for this magical world.
Well, as I see it, you have three options. One, you could just use parentheses, and then you only have one thing that's not magic-y. Yeah, any kind of syntax breaks the fourth wall a little bit. It's just, I'd rather break it in one way, just with parentheses, than also have commas and curly braces and square brackets and angled brackets and colons and semicolons. It's just like you can have a whole chunk full of syntax that you have to runify, or you can make use of the fact that Lisp is actually a very elegant language in that it mixes all syntax except the bare minimal amount that you need, which happen to be parentheses. So I went to that route for the text-based side of things. But I will also note that in Runeland, you don't have to use parentheses. Yeah. You can have a sort of meta rune that you click and drag, and it encompasses other runes, and then it can compile to parentheses behind the scenes, so everything still works. But you can use whatever UI you want, or whatever UI you are willing to build to sort of author spells. Just needs to compile to parentheses. So you could hide the parentheses if you want. It's almost exactly what Blockly does. Mm-hmm. Blockly blocks expand to incorporate the blocks you drag into them. You could do a similar sort of thing with runes. So what I've built is sort of a framework that will let anyone who has some skill at authoring web-based interfaces create whatever coding interfaces they want. I hope we'll have a whole I don't know, slew of interesting ideas in that space. I'm just implementing the ones that I am sort of the most excited about on top of that framework. But, I'm open to some other cool stuff too.
So I have one from Ben Zerby. The text editor sure reminds me of the eval in the old version of the game. Will it be scope limited to just runes that exist, or can we expand a little with it?
Oh. No, it's not necessarily scope limited. I mean, you should be able to... I mean, anything I'm writing, you can always hack through and get straight into Unreal. And I mean, you could write straight JavaScript in there if you want to, if you're willing to, like, explore the Unreal JS library or API, which is essentially just a JavaScript wrapper around all the C++ classes. So you do have access to everything that you would be able to do in C++, as far as I know, as long as it works at runtime.
So not scope limited. Cool.
Not scope limited, yeah.
I have one from Jackson Travis Ripper. What is the main target audience of the game? To simplify the intention of the game to teach people how to code, or the main intention is a game where you can code your own spells, with people being taught to code more as a byproduct of the game?
I guess if I had to pick, it would be the second one, but I just want to mention that CodeSpells, I don't see it as one game or even one piece of software. I am going to make a game, a few games, I hope, but I'll make those things on top of a set of tools that will let other people create games as well. So it's really just I like the idea of being a wizard. I know how to code. I want to craft my own magic spells. I know a lot of other people out there do too, because there are a lot of people who are excited about the CodeSpells project. So I hope we all together basically continue what I'm doing, which is create CodeSpells games, continue to build on the CodeSpells tools. And some of those games, no doubt, will be purely educational games, because it's just a no-brainer. Like, of course that's a cool way to learn how to code.
Yeah, I expect some educators will make some games that are just educational.
And, and that's a good point. I want the tools to be powerful enough that a coding educator who may not be like a, razzle-dazzle software engineer, but does know how to code and is passionate about teaching it, can create their own learning environments with minimal amounts of coding.
Yeah,
so
that'd be great.
There's, maybe the audience knows this, but you and I are educators and we've done coding education for a long time, so of course we're passionate about that too. But if I could say there's one sort of top-level idea that's governing it, it's just coding and spells are cool.
I want that to be the high-level idea.
So along with all of those educational things that I'm sure will exist inside the CodeSpells universe, I think there's also going to be stuff that's just purely for fun, because spells and coding are fun.
Yeah. Agreed. This is kind of a fun one from Angalore. What are your favorite games?
Video games?
Presumably video games.
I guess the very first game I remember playing that was a 3D game was called Ultima Underworld. Ultima Underworld 1, followed by Ultima Underworld 2, which I remember I have fond memories of being a child playing that with my dad, and so that was kind of a groundbreaking game for me. And so since then I've played, a variety of sort of immersive fantasy kinds of games. Anything by Bethesda. I played Daggerfall, which is their Elder Scrolls 2 game. There's one before it, but that was before my time. But Daggerfall, again, was this groundbreaking, open world game. And of course, I always played a wizard.
Yeah.
Heroes of Might and Magic, I played a lot of. The reason I'm mentioning all these old games is I don't play games anymore. I do a lot more game development. Anything that's immersive and fantasy, and maybe the one departure from that is I also really, really like StarCraft.
StarCraft, yeah.
Even though I'm not very good at it. But I was raised on the original StarCraft, and then StarCraft 2 came out, and I had entertain some brief aspirations of being a professional e-gamer, but I'm not good at it. So
well, I know the whole community is really glad that you're making CodeSpells instead of playing StarCraft.
Probably for the best. Yeah.
I still have a ton of community questions that we'll be using in future Q&A sessions, but if you have any questions that you haven't heard the answer to yet, please leave a comment in either the YouTube post or the Patreon post, and let us know what your questions are so next time around I can ask them to Steven. Bye, guys.